gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States, and Protector of Mexico, back with you once again for episode number 179 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is January 6th, 2021, and we'll be covering the 6th through the 12th today. This is our 296th day living under COVID-19 restrictions with no end in sight. Yes, the vaccine is here, but there's not enough to go around, and the rollout's been, well, flubbed. So hang on, folks. Stay safe. The vaccine will get to you, and hopefully in a couple months, hopefully, we can get back to normal. Couple programming notes to start off with. First of all, as you may have seen on our weekend episode with the Countess, we are going to be launching an online trivia night on June 16, a Saturday night at 7 p.m. Tickets are $10. You can compete for prizes. We're going to start off with just San Francisco trivia, but see how things go, we may expand it. So more details on that. A link for tickets will be posted very, very soon. We hope you can all attend for some good times. Secondly, we are coming up on a year of doing this vlog. Started off in mid-March, the beginning of the pandemic, and it looks like we'll still be doing it after 1 year. So sometime between now and then, because if we kept doing the format that we're currently doing, we'd just be repeating ourselves with this day in history, births, deaths, San Francisco stories, things like that. So what we are considering after the 1 year mark comes up, or maybe a little bit before, we'll see, is a format change where we'll focus on just one story of San Francisco history, but do it more in depth than we currently do, kind of like what the Countess does on the weekends. We won't have a musical guest, however. We will probably be doing this Emperor's opinion, a little commentary at the end of each episode. We'll see. Let us know what you think. Leave your comments below. Subscribe. And also, don't forget we do accept donations, and they're very necessary for us to keep going in these very, very difficult economic times. Well, let's move on with the program, shall we? Beginning with our national days, as we always do. Today, the 6th. Wait, that's tomorrow. Well, actually, we're filming this on Tuesday because tomorrow, well, we're going to be glued to our television set watching the doings in Washington, D.C. So, it is Bean Day tomorrow. Lima, Pinto, Lenten, so... Wait, oh God, I totally blew that. Lima, lentil, I'll start again. Lima, lentil, soy, and pinto, navy, northern, and garbanzo, kidneys, and frijoles negros. I love beans. I love beans. Woo, woo, woo. I love beans. How about you? High in fiber, low in fat. Hey, I bet you didn't know that. Space Ghost fans will understand. Yes. Well, moving on. The 7th is Tempura Day. Ooh, we love tempura. When was the last time you had some good tempura? It's been a while for us, that's for sure. The 8th, National Bubble Bath Day. Oh, we love a good bubble bath, and it's so relaxing. The 9th is National Static Electricity Day. Don't know why they dedicated a day that, but there it is. The 10th, Peculiar People Day. The 11th, International Thank You Day. Thank you. And the 12th is Kiss a Ginger Day, so hats off to all of our ginger friends. We have a few. We're going to do 2 San Francisco stories today. The first one, coming as so often does, from John Ralston's wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco. And the first story we're doing is from January 7, 1947. Herb Caen sounds an alarm. Chronicle columnist Herb Caen began the second paragraph of his column, It's News to Me, with an ominous item. A top city official confides, the days of the cable car are numbered. Only sentimentality is keeping them running, and one catastrophe will kill that, plus a few people. Meanwhile, the city was quietly tested a new twin-engine bus that can stop and start fully loaded any number of times on the steepest hills to the despair of cable car fans. Kane was warning San Franciscans that if they wanted the cable cars to stay in San Francisco, they'd better do something and fast. He may have also intended to force the hand of Mayor Roger Lampton and city officials who would have preferred to replace the cable cars quietly before opposition could organize. In any case, on January 27th, Lampton and his annual message to the Board of Supervisors said, quote, "This city should get rid of its cable cars as soon as possible. I know there are strong sentimental reasons for keeping this old, ingenious, and novel method of transportation, but the sentimentalists do not have to pay the bills and do not have to run the risk of being charged with criminal negligence in the very possible event a cable breaks and a car gets loose on one of our steep hills." Readers of the statement of Lampton, who was not famous for intellect, wondered what he was talking about. No cable had ever broken, and even if one had, cable cars have brakes, including an emergency brake that jammed a guillotine-like piece of lumber into the space below the tracks. The city official who leaked the item to Kane would find out fast how wrong he was. Lampton would have a storm break over his head. And of course, the cable cars were saved thanks to a charter amendment that was spearheaded by Friedel Klusman. We've talked about that in other episodes, and maybe that's one of the in-depth stories we'll be doing. It's one of the things we like about this possible format change is allowing us to go more in-depth in stories. Speaking of which, our second San Francisco story is one we don't need a book or any notes for. It's one we tell often, but it's rather a sad chapter in our imperial life. But let's get on with it nonetheless. January 8th, 1880. Now, at that time, we were living in the Eureka Lodgings boarding house, then located at 624 Commercial Street. The address has since changed to 642 Commercial Street. There's a post they're called, one of those privately owned public open spaces, called Empire Park there today. And if you go there, there is a plaque showing that is where we lived from 1863 to 1880, 17 years, the majority of our reign. Placed there by the ancient and honorable order of E. Clampus Fitus. What say the brethren? Brothers will get that. So we lived in a small room there, paid 50 cents a day in rent, and about 8 p.m., the night of January 8th, we decided we're going to head out and walk about 3 blocks to a meeting of the Hastings Society, actually a debate and lecture, at the California Academy of Sciences that stood at California and then DuPont, now Grant Avenue. It was then located at catty corner to Old St. Mary's Cathedral. We make our way up Commercial Street a half block and turn left and proceed 2 blocks down Kearny. We cross over California Street and start climbing Nob Hill after turning right. Struggling against the wind and rain, we reach the corner of California and DuPont across the street from Old St. Mary's Cathedral. As we reach that corner, a cable car goes by and some of our loyal subjects wave to us. We wave back. Stumble and fall on that corner. And that is where we pass away of a stroke just shy of our 62nd birthday. Well, we were headed to a pauper's grave. But luckily, one of our brothers from our days as a Freemason remember us and take up a collection to ensure we are given a proper send-off. The next morning, newspaper obituaries run nationwide. The one in the San Francisco Chronicle reads, pardon our French, "Le roi est mort." The king is dead. We are laid out in a rosewood coffin decorated with silver in a funeral home at O'Farrell and Grant, where the Ice Cream Museum stands today. An estimated 30,000 people come to pay their last respects to us. Estimates some as low as 10,000. Our funeral procession is 2 miles long. Anywhere from 30,000 to 200,000 people, which was virtually the entire population of the city at that time, line the route to the cemetery. It is said to be the biggest funeral the city has ever seen to this day. As our coffin is lowered to the ground, there is a total eclipse of the sun. Now, after our death, some reporters, with the help of our landlady, entered our room. They didn't find much, just $5 in silver and gold. This 1828 French franc coin we had been saving for many, many years. Newspaper clippings, photographs, telegrams, tattered uniforms and hats, not much more. Some of the items were taken by our landlord, which are probably the ones that had survived, but most of our estate, as such as it was given to the California Society of Pioneers by the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and that all burned up in 1906. It is said that 2 walking sticks survived, and they may very well have been ours. We'll never know for sure. Now, every year for the last, I believe, 8 years, the Emperor Norton Legacy League has reenacted our final steps. We would normally be doing it this Friday, but it is not safe this year to do such things. And also this Saturday, the Ancient and Honorable Order of E. Clampus Vitus would be gathering at our graves. We did not this year, but we did do a virtual gathering, and that video will be up in the next few days. We invite you all to see it. Well, we have some other events coming up in our life next year, so stay tuned for those as well. In fact, a very significant one. Well, let's move on to our Florida Man segment. Oh, there's always something interesting in Florida Man, isn't there? And such is the case today. We have 2 stories. First is from the 6th of January. Florida man calls 911 to report himself drunk driving. And from the 7th, Florida man denies syringes found in his rectum are his. Whose were they? How did they get there? Well, let's move on to our other history now for this upcoming week, starting with the 6th. 1907, Maria Montessori opens her first Montessori school in Rome. That was 1907. 1912, New Mexico becomes the 47th state of the Union. Archduke David Thomas now has reign over that. We'll talk about him later on. Well, some of a similar name, at least, I suppose. The 7th, 1610, Galileo discovers the first 3 moons of Saturn. Saturn? God, help if I could read. Sorry about this today. Io, Europa, and Ganymede. 1890, African-American inventor William Purvis receives a patent for the fountain pen. 1896, Fanny Farmer publishes her first cookbook, the Boston Cooking School Cookbook. A rare volume if you can find it. 1989, Akihito becomes the 125th Emperor of Japan. Hats off to emperors. After the death of his father, Hirohito. Moving on. 1999, President Bill Clinton's impeachment trial begins in the U.S. Senate after the House voted to impeach him for lying about his affair with Monica Lewinsky. How quaint. Let's move on to the 8th, 1815. The Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812. But the war ended on the 24th of December, 1814, but none of the combatants knew that. 1870, U.S. Mint at Carson City begins issuing coins. Do you have any Carson City coins? They have a CC on them. 1877, Crazy Horse and his warriors fight their last battle with the United States Cavalry at Wolf Mountain in the Montana Territory. 1932, ratification of the present San Francisco Charter. 1978, Harvey Milk becomes the first openly gay person elected to public office in California as he takes his seat on the Board of Supervisors. 1992, George H.W. Bush gets ill and vomits on Japanese Prime Minister's lap. Until fairly recently, the most embarrassing moment in the presidency. 2011, attempted assassination of Arizona Congress member Gabrielle Giffords and subsequent shooting in Casa Adobes, Arizona, at a Safeway grocery store, kills 6, wounds 13, including Giffords, who survived. Moving on to the 9th, 1847. First San Francisco newspaper published, the California Star. And actually, the location of that is known as the Bank of the Orient in Chinatown, which was the old telephone exchange, which we may do a whole story on that someday. It was started by Sam Brannan, who we've talked about a number of times, and the earliest, we believe, earliest known clamper plaque is there. It's very small, you can sneeze it and miss. It is there. We're hoping we'll put a picture of it up. We believe we have a picture of it. Where were we? There we go. 1861, a Union merchant ship, the Star of the West, is fired upon as it tries to deliver supplies at Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, sparking the Civil War. 1908, Muir Woods National Monument in California is established. What a wonderful place that is. 1947, Elizabeth Betty Short, the Black Dahlia, is last seen alive. 1956, Abigail Van Buren, real name Pauline Phillips, Dear Abby advice column first appears in newspapers. 1972, billionaire Howard Hughes says Clifford Irving's autobiography is a fake. He actually called a teleconference to do that. 2007, Apple CEO Steve Jobs announces the iPhone. And as we've said many, many times, this entire video is shot, edited, uploaded, everything is done on an iPhone. Thank you, Steve Jobs, for introducing the modern version of the Swiss Army knife. Moving on to the 10th, 1870, John D. Rockefeller incorporates Standard Oil. 1949, RCA introduces the 45 RPM record, the single. Still have a few. 1951, United Nations headquarters opens in Manhattan. 1984, Clara Peller first asks, "Where's the beef?" in a commercial for Wendy's hamburger chain. We'll talk about Wendy's a little more later on. Moving on to the 11th, 1838, first public demonstration of telegraph messages sent using dots and dashes at Speedwell Ironworks in Morristown, New Jersey by Samuel Morse and Alfred Vail. The internet of its time. 1922, insulin first used on humans to treat diabetes. 1923, first Dutch Dada evening. We're a big fan of the Dada, you know. Theo von Doesburg and Kurt Schwitters participated. 1949, first recorded snowfall in Los Angeles. Moving on to the 12th, 1939, Timely Comics, later Marvel, founded by American publisher Martin Goodman in New York. 1943, Frankfurters replaced by Victory sausages, a mix of meat and soy meal. I'd forgotten about that one, but who remembers Freedom Fries? 1957, Southern Christian Leadership Council, SCLC, founded by Martin Luther King Jr. as leader at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. 1962, Operation Ranch Hand begins, a U.S. Air Force operation to spray South Vietnamese force with defoliants such as Agent Orange. We're still seeing the results of that to this day. 1979, Los Angeles' hillside strangler, Kenneth Bianchi, is arrested in Bellingham, Washington, ending a reign of terror. Well, let's move on now to our births for today. And we'll begin with the 6th of January, 1854. Sherlock Holmes, fictional detective, is born via Arthur Conan Doyle. 1878, Carl Sandburg, the poet and biographer of Lincoln. 1880, the first, some say, movie cowboy, Tom Mix. 1924, Earl Scruggs, North Carolina bluegrass musician, Flatt & Scruggs, Ballad of Jed Clampett. You get the idea. 1925, John Z. DeLorean, the creator of the DeLorean automobile. 1930, Vic Tayback, remember him from Alice? 1945, Pepe Le Pew, oh, ma chérie. You get the idea, not my best. 1964, Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, American financier and White House communications director for what, 12 days, you think? Moving on to the 7th, 1502, Gregory the 13th, who was Pope from 1572 to 1585, introduced the Gregorian calendar in 1582, the calendar we currently use. 1800, Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States. 1911, Butterfly McQueen. I don't know nothing about boys and no babies. 1912, Charles Addams, the cartoonist, famous for his New Yorker cartoons, and of course, the creator of the Addams Family. Got a lot of cartoons today for some reason. 1960, Loretta Sanchez, American politician. She's the one that brought down Bob Dornan. Thank you, Loretta. 1966, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, American publicist and wife of John Kennedy Jr. So move on to the 8th. 1904, Peter Arno, another cartoonist from the New Yorker. 1909, Evelyn Wood, American educator, speed reading. She created speed reading. Do you know how to do speed reading? 1926, Soupy Sales. We were just watching some of him the other day with Pookie and White Fang and Blacktooth. You get the idea. Those of us of a certain age remember Soupy. Now, when he passed away, we wondered out loud why he was called Soupy. Was it because he liked soup? No. He and his siblings had the word bone in their name. So like one of his brothers was Ham Bone. He was Soup Bone. Don't know why, but that's the story, yes. 1931, Bill Graham, the rock promoter, concert impresario here in San Francisco, the Fillmore West, Fillmore East, Winterland. He was a giant in the local music scene and actually nationally as well. 1933, one of our favorite journalists, Charles Osgood, who was so wonderful on the CBS Weekend News and CBS Sunday Morning. Miss him a lot. 1935, Elvis Aaron Presley. Thank you very much. Also 1935, Jesse Garon Presley, who was stillborn. Elvis had a twin. We remember seeing a movie a number of years ago that the plot was rather convoluted, but basically it was that Jesse survived and took the persona of Elvis. It was very complicated. Of course, our favorite movie involving Elvis would be Bubba Hotep. Great movie. 1941, Graham Chapman from Monty Python's Flying Circus. 1942, Stephen Hawking, who just passed away recently, lived a lot longer than they thought he would. 1982, Gabby Hoffman, who was so wonderful in the TV series Transparent. 1983, Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea. Moving on to the 9th, 1870, Joseph B. Strauss, civil engineer and builder of the Golden Gate Bridge. 1901, another cartoonist, Chick Young, Blondie. 1913, Peter John Norton, this is suspicious. British Navy officer born in Germantown, South Africa, where we are from. Our father's name was John Norton. So, well, we're wondering, a relative possibly? Possibly. We're going to do a little more research on that one. 1914, Gypsy Rose Lee, the famous stripper, immortalized in the musical Gypsy. 1915, Fernando Lamas, born in Argentina, Buenos Aires. ¿Quién es más macho? Fernando Lamas o Ricardo Montalban? 1915, Les Paul. Yes, the inventor of the Les Paul guitar, multi-tracking, wonderful, wonderful guitarist. Probably not the inventor of the electric guitar, but he certainly improved it quite a bit. Some will argue with me on that, I'm sure. 1916, orchestra leader and composer Vic Mizzy. Wrote a lot of TV themes, but one, of course, was The Addams Family. Where were we? 1935, Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island, and of course, Dobie Gillis. Work! And I think actually Vic Mizzy may have written the Dobie Gillis theme as well. Not sure about that. 1941, the great singer-songwriter Joan Baez. 1950, David Johansen, who was probably better well known as his persona Buster Poindexter, but some of us remember him from the New York Dolls, the proto-punk band. 1982, Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, wife of Crown Prince William. Moving on to the 10th, 1864, George Washington Carver, the African-American agricultural, can't talk today, scientist who studied the peanut. 1904, Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. 1930, Disney Studio co-founder Roy E. Disney. 1939, Sal Mineo. Oh, what a tragic death, but what a great actor as well. Just wonderful. 1943, died young Jim Croce. Died the proper way for a pop star to die in a plane crash. What is it? Plane crash, drug overdose, or shot by a crazed fan. Those are the three proper ways for a pop star to die. 1945, Frank Sinatra Jr. 1945 as well, Rod Stewart, the great singer. 1948, Don Fagen from Steely Dan. Moving on to the 11th now, 1755, Alexander Hamilton, U.S. founding father, first United States Secretary of the Treasury. 1906, Albert Hoffman, the discoverer of LSD. Hmm. 1907, Abraham Joshua Heschel, Jewish American rabbi and theologian. Moving on to the 12th, 1876, Jack London, the great writer from the Bay Area. 1893, Hermann Goering from World War II. He was one of the Nazis. So let's see. He had two, but very small. 1918, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the Indian guru who developed transcendental meditation. 1951, Rush Limbaugh, American right-wing radio personality. And flip side of the coin, they share a birthday, Howard Stern, but Howard Stern was born in 1954. And 1964, Jeff Bezos, American entrepreneur and founder of Amazon. I think, is he currently the richest person in the world? I think so. Don't quote me on that. Well, let's move on to our deaths today. 1785, Haim Solomon, Polish-born Jewish-American broker who helped finance the American Revolution. 1850, that was in 1785, I didn't say that already. And we're on the 6th. 1852, Louis Braille, French educator, inventor of a system of reading and writing for the blind. 1909, Theodore Roosevelt, 26th U.S. president, visited San Francisco during his presidency. 1985, Robert W. Welch Jr., American businessman who founded the conservative John Birch Society, whose views seem to have gone mainstream these days. 1995, Morty the Moose, who was seen in the titles of the great TV show Northern Exposure. 2000, Don Martin, another cartoonist, in his case, Mad Magazine. He was one of the greats, absolutely. Moving on to the 7th, 1943, Nikola Tesla. Hats off to Tesla. 1989, another hats off, Emperor Hirohito of Japan, dies 87, after a 62-year reign. Well, let's move on to the 8th now. 1324, Marco Polo. Not it. 1642, Galileo Galilei. 1825, Eli Whitney, the American inventor of the cotton gin. 1896, the writer Paul Verlaine. 1938, Johnny Gruel, another cartoonist, the creator of Raggedy Ann and Andy. 1941, Robert Baden-Powell, British founder of the Boy Scouts movement. 1948, Kurt Schwitters, German-British Dada artist and poet. A lot of his work were collages. 1976, Zhou Enlai, premier of the People's Republic of China. And 1992, former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Have you noticed that all the freeways are named after him? You'll see as you get onto a freeway, you'll see a sign off to the right. It says Begin Freeway. For some reason, we named all of our freeways after Menachem Begin. Don't know why. Well, moving on now to the... Eek! I'll find it here somewhere. Here we go. 2002, Dave Thomas, the American businessman who founded Wendy's restaurants. Now, we don't mean Dave Thomas, the renowned anthropologist, nor do we mean Dave Thomas from SCTV, nor do we mean Archduke Dave Thomas of New Mexico. No, we mean Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's. Let's move on now to the 9th. It's 1873, Napoleon III, Emperor of France. Moving on to the 10th, 1862, Samuel Colt, American inventor and industrialist, created the Colt 6-shot revolver. 1917, William Buffalo Bill Cody, American Wild West hunter and showman. 1951, Sinclair Lewis, American writer, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1930. 1971, Coco Chanel, the French fashion designer. 2017, Claire Hollingworth, British war correspondent, who was the first to report on the outbreak of World War II. She died at 105. And you know, female journalists were very rare in those days. She broke the story. Let's move on now to the 11th, 1874, Gail Borden, American manufacturer and inventor of condensed milk. Yes, Borden's. 1914, Ambrose Bierce, American writer. It's presumed he died on that day. We don't know for sure. 2008, Edmund Hillary, New Zealand mountaineer, first to climb Mount Everest in 1953. 2008, Carl Karcher, founder of Carl's Jr., arch right-winger, we might add, gave a lot of money to anti-gay and very, very right-wing causes. 2014, Ariel Sharon, Israeli politician and general prime minister of Israel from 2001 to 2006. Moving on to the 12th, the great mystery writer Agatha Christie. And 2001, William Hewlett, American engineer and businessman, co-founder of Hewlett-Packard, HP. For our quotes today, we are going to end with 2 from Alexander Hamilton. First one, they're very relevant, we think. There are seasons in every country where noise and impudence pass current for worth, and in popular commotions especially, the clamors of interested and factious men are often mistaken for patriotism. And number 2, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Well, we'll see on Wednesday, won't we? Yes, as this vlog is being posted, they'll be deciding in Congress, and it's going to go one way or the other. Not so worried about the people inside the Capitol. We're more worried about those heavily armed people outside the Capitol. We hope the cooler heads prevail and things end up the way they should in a democracy with an election that went smoothly, no matter what people say. There's no proof of anything else. Well, that just about wraps it up for today. Now, don't forget, as we said earlier, we do accept tips. Here's where you can do that. Actually, it's down here now, that's right. Because we leave the links in the comments, you can easily click on any of those. You can do a monthly subscription via Patreon or leave a one-time donation via PayPal or Venmo. We appreciate all of our generous donors. They are greatly needed. Don't forget to stay tuned for details about our trivia night starting on the 16th, hopefully every Saturday after that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So until we see you again, stay safe and stay inside. If you do go outside, wear the mask. Things are just a mess right now and getting worse every day. Do not take unproven cures that might kill you. Be kind to one another until we see you again. A gracious good day.